people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
News. Okay, we'll start with this. Earlier this week at the kickoff press conference for the Rolly Romero fight, Ryan Garcia said he regrets drinking and smoking before the Devin Haney bout. Boxing star Ryan Garcia acknowledged on Tuesday that it wasn't professional to drink alcohol and smoke marijuana ahead of his April 2024 fight with Devin Haney. Garcia posted videos on social media in the days leading up to that junior welterweight title bout, which he won via majority decision, where he was drinking at a club. He also then pretended to drink a beer at the weigh-in. Despite Garcia's erratic behavior, he floored Devin Haney 31-0 with 15 KOs 3 times in a major upset. However, Garcia later tested positive for a performance-enhancing drug, and the result was overturned to a no contest. The 26-year-old was also suspended 1 year by the New York State Athletic Commission. Garcia, 24-1 with 20 knockouts, will end the ban with a May 2nd fight versus Rolly Romero over a year out from his last outing, outdoors in Times Square, the headliner of a stacked Ring Magazine triple-header that includes Haney's return versus Jose Ramirez and Teofimo Lopez's 140-pound title defense against Arnold Barboza. I want to be great, Garcia said. I've always wanted to fight the best fighters in the sport. As far as my problems outside of the ring, I've always had those problems. I don't know who else struggles with this stuff like that, but that's just something I was struggling with. I don't feel the least bit of sympathy for Ryan Garcia. Why should I? Because you're a substance abuser who let it get to the point that you made a fool out of yourself and offended a lot of people in the process. Why should I pity you? You tested positive for a banned substance, got suspended for it, and still managed to land a multi-million-dollar opportunity. What's to feel sorry for him about? I'm sick of seeing character flaws relegated to chronic illnesses. You're just an asshole with asshole tendencies, and when you drink, more of those tendencies come out. That's all it is. It's not a Greek tragedy. You're just an asshole. Ryan continued, I want to show my dedication to the sport and be a true professional. I admit my wrongs, and I don't want anybody to take my actions of drinking and smoking before the fight and try to think that's a way to handle yourself as a professional. So I came here to change that, and this is my first fight to get respect back and then prove to everybody that it wasn't a fluke. That's bullshit too. Before Turkey comes into it with all of his money, you guys weren't pressed to do that rematch with Devin Haney. You guys weren't chomping at the bit to prove it wasn't a fluke. Oscar said he didn't even see the point in doing a rematch. The only reason you are doing it is because Turkey is paying you a fortune to do it. So this isn't about proving anything to anyone. Try to make it sound noble. Garcia's fight with Romero will be his first at the 147-pound limit. When he faced Haney for a 140-pound title, he was 3.2 pounds overweight. Haney too will move up to 147, as will Ramirez, and both are former super lightweight champions. If Garcia and Haney emerge victorious without any injury, the plan is for them to meet in a hotly anticipated rematch in October in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Haney, like Garcia, hasn't competed since their initial meeting. At the end of the day, I fought somebody on PEDs, said Haney, 26. The world wants to see what Devin Haney's going to show up, and I look to give everybody all those answers on May 2nd. It was definitely time Haney added of the jump to welter. My body was just maturing. 140 was hard for me to make. I felt good for one night, but in the second fight, I didn't feel as good. Well, consistently walking into left hook after left hook after left hook, that's not going to feel good. That might have something to do with that. Interesting particulars in association with what is this two-pronged process is that apparently Ryan Garcia will not be trained by Eddie Reynoso for the Romero fight. That's what Teofimo had to say.
Teofimo Lopez.
Ryan Garcia is not going to be in the camp. Just confirming that now. Yeah, Ryan Garcia is not going to be in the camp. The camp is going to be elsewhere. It's not going to be hosted in San Diego. I'll let the rest search for that and where it'll be. However,
who is Ryan Garcia's trainer then? It's not Eddie Reynoso?
Nope, it's not Eddie Reynoso. It's up in the air now.
It makes you wonder what version of Ryan will turn up in May opposite the ring, Rolly Romero. Does he need to be the best version of himself to beat that guy, though? That if a Ryan Garcia, who was drinking and smoking and generally behaving erratic, was able to beat Devin, well, that same Ryan could be able to beat Rolly.
Why not? Rolly's not a good fighter.
One thing Ryan Garcia did say that I happen to agree with is Rolly doesn't find himself in this fight because he's a good fighter. He finds himself here because he's a character, because some people think he's funny. He's here for comic relief, not pugilism.
I don't think we need the best version of Ryan to beat Rolly.
But it is interesting that Eddie Reynoso will not be preparing him for this fight.
Does he go back to Derek?
Once Trainer of the Year, Derek James, for his works with Errol Spence Jr. and Frank Martin, Ryan Garcia for a while.
Does he go back to Derek?
I wonder what Derek is up to these days. We know he's not with Errol Spence Jr. anymore. I had heard that Frank Martin has a new trainer, and he's not training Ryan.
Oh, the mighty have fallen.
We'll see who ends up training Ryan, but I reiterate, I don't think we need the very best version of Ryan to beat Rolly, because Rolly isn't any good and he never was.
Over to the junior middleweight division and a familiar theme, the redemption theme.
When it comes to former unified welterweight champion Errol Spence Jr., is Errol done?
I'd say he is.
Spence's absence has raised speculation that he could retire from the sport. He was also seen in a promotional role as he promoted Frank Martin, who is signed to his management company. That was during Martin's fight against Gervonta Davis, as the latter stopped his man to extend his record to 30-0. Spence made it clear that he did enjoy the promotional side of the game, as fans are left wondering whether or not they will see him again. I don't think they will. I think he's done.
Finished.
And after just one loss, to me, proof positive that he's not the fighter that he was made out to be, that losing to Terrence Crawford doesn't have to be the end of you, but if it is,
You ain't the guy they should have been putting on a pedestal.
Errol doesn't even seem like a bad guy or a bad person. I'm just saying there was far too much hype, too much hyperbole, that what turned out to be the build-up to a Terrence Crawford fight was little more than a constant effort to mask his inadequacies, that underneath it all, they knew what would happen if they fought, so they tried their best to put distance between Errol and Terrence.
It's just that eventually they ran out of options.
He couldn't run forever. Errol Spence Jr. said, I like the promoter side. I feel like it might be my calling a little bit, being a promoter and looking at the young guys coming up and helping them get to the top of their level, because that's where we are right now.
These quotes are from before Frank Martin got knocked out by Gervonta.
Frank's at the top right now, and once he's at the top, you're the man, Spence said. A lot of people take it lightly just because I came back and fought and all of that, but that's serious stuff. It's not too many people that go high speed in a Ferrari and get thrown from a Ferrari, land on solid concrete, and are still here to talk today, still survive, still be coherent, and everything that was traumatic and a brutal experience that I went through. I've always been rating him being Terrence Crawford, highly. I've rated him super high. It definitely wasn't my night, but you know, I definitely want to get that get back, Spence said.
I remember what he said before Terrence put the pause on him. I remember him trashing Terrence Crawford, trashing his resume.
To then turn around after the fact and say that he's always rated him highly? You could have fooled me.
Didn't look that way.
So many memories, so many, that I remember years ago when it was Errol Spence Jr., Adrian Bronor, and Robert Easter, I think it was, all inebriated, all drunk.
On camera.
I talked about it here on the channel and how that wasn't a good sign, that those kinds of behaviors don't make for a sustainable boxing career for one as highly touted as Errol Spence Jr. was at that time, and people gave me a hard time about it, saying I was making a mountain out of a molehill, so that years later, Errol Spence himself could say, the worst thing I did to myself was drinking. If you're an athlete, focus on the end goal. Hopefully it's a better situation for you and your loved ones.
I remember.
This was all before the car accident. I said, This guy's not going to live up to the expectations set before him if he keeps this up. The car accident happens, the culmination of these behaviors, and there were still people trying to downplay it.
That I said this guy shouldn't be drinking, where you guys are telling me that he's young and he's earned it, he ought to be able to have some fun. What happened?
Looks like he had too much. Too much fun, too much to drink.
It's over, folks.
I don't think he's coming back. I don't think he has the drive, the passion to put his body through that again, to go in there under the hot lights and swap punches with another man that if he wasn't damaged goods already before he fought Crawford, he's damaged goods now. That was a career-altering beating.
And that people are still printing articles about him, asking the question, is Errol Spence Jr. done? Isn't it obvious?
This upcoming July will make 2 years from the Crawford fight. 2 years.
That's 2 years you could have hired a new trainer after sacking Derek James. That's 2 years you could have spent rebuilding yourself, fighting low-level fighters en route back to the top. That's 2 years.
It's a while. And the longer it takes you to come back, if you ever do, the more difficult it becomes. I'm not chastising Errol, I'm just stating the facts. I don't think he's coming back, and that's why.
He did once say that he's only here for a good time, but not a long one. Time will have proven him right. And it seems to me you lived your life like a candle in the wind. Errol Spence's alcoholism was the end.
Don't expect me to be gracious. Don't expect me to be nice because you guys weren't while you were talking all that shit.
It's not even Errol I have a problem with. It's you guys.
For what it's worth, Errol doesn't seem like a bad guy. But you guys were the most obnoxious people in the entirety of the boxing sphere, the boxing space. So that when you're dead wrong...
Don't expect me to be gracious. Don't expect me to be nice.
Just in keeping with the theme of overhyped and overrated as it pertains to Gervonta Davis and the entire fiasco revolving around the Lamont Roach fight, Canelo Alvarez said he believes Gervonta Davis should have been disqualified. It's a little different coming from him because he's not one of Gervonta Davis's critics. On many occasions in the past, Canelo has said he's a fan of Gervonta Davis, and Gervonta is a fan of him. There's been a mutual respect there, but having seen what happened and based on the rules of boxing, there is no other conclusion to come to. He should have been DQ'd.
What else are you supposed to say?
I saw veteran content creator Boxing Ego say that anybody saying Lamont Roach won can't outsell Gervonta Davis. Well, Canelo can. Canelo does.
What was an attempt to invalidate the avalanche of criticism, the avalanche of individuals who scored that fight for Lamont Roach, some without the knockdown and many people with, feel that Lamont should have won. Canelo feels that Lamont should have won.
Veteran trainer Robert Garcia said the same. Lamont should have won for a variety of reasons, not just one.
There was three different situations where 3 ways Roach should have won that fight. Took a knee, that was a standing 8 count, 100%. That was a knockdown. Then he turns and walks away. That the ref should have waved it off, and that should have been a TKO. And then his corner steps into the ring to wipe his face. That's a disqualification. Yeah. There's no way Roach shouldn't have walked out with that belt in his hand.
Robert Garcia thinks Lamont Roach should have won, while some members of the media attempt to play spin doctor for Gervonta.
I saw Al Bernstein of the Berenstein Bears say this is a simple statement. If you call yourself a journalist, you don't advocate for one fighter over others or spin things continually to put forth a point of view that looks like the fighter's PR person has come up with them. You can certainly have opinions on things, but when it looks like dogma continually flowing for a specific fighter, that is not something a journalist is supposed to do. Just saying.
That's for the guys like Ellie, acting as defense attorneys for Gervonta Davis while getting upset that Lamont hired his own.
Hired his own what?
Attorneys.
I saw Lamont Roach take to his social media simply stating, Part 2. Likely that the rematch is underway, the rematch is en route because Gervonta is not at liberty to move on to anything else.
Maintaining his reputation without settling affairs first.
You've got to settle up with Lamont Roach at least one more time before you can go back to being who you were before that fight. And you know, maybe Gervonta Davis gets the job done in the second fight. Maybe he does in the second fight what everybody thought he would do in the first. Because I don't think that Lamont Roach is all of a sudden this amazing fighter so much as Gervonta never was. And that's what people are starting to realize, while content creators like Boxing Ego stick to the narrative.
Trying to keep hope alive.
Continue to gaslight the boxing community, what portion of them will listen, saying, in my opinion, even with moving up to 135, Lamont Roach has more power than Shakur Stevenson.
Oh, he does. So where was that power when he fought Jamel Herring? Because they both fought Jamel, and only one of them knocked him out.
You're thinking to yourself that triangle theories don't work, but I'm not talking about triangles, I'm talking about power. That if Lamont Roach cracks harder than Shakur Stevenson, why did Shakur knock out Jamel and Lamont didn't?
Because this is all bullshit.
It's all bullshit. No, I do not think Lamont Roach is suddenly a different fighter than the fighter that he was going in. It's just more people are starting to realize Gervonta's not as good as they thought, because the damage is done, and you shouldn't need two fights with a Lamont Roach for one decisive win. You were a 20-1 favorite.
Do we gotta start bringing up super bantamweights and featherweights for you to stay a knockout puncher? Do we gotta do that? Because apparently a super feather was too much.
One who isn't even known for power. You don't have to take it from me, but I think Emmanuel Navarrete would steamroll Lamont Roach. I absolutely do.
At 130.
So that giving Gervonta Davis a hard time at 135, that doesn't change that, not for me, because it's not Lamont Roach you need to look at differently. It's Gervonta.
He's not what you thought he was.
If you have to bring up super featherweights that aren't even known for power, and you still fail to knock them out, you have to bend the rules this much just to keep your belt and your O intact.
What are people even defending?
What is there to defend? I mean, if Shakur Stevenson needed two fights for one win over Lamont Roach.
If Keyshawn Davis, if Vasyl Lomachenko, if the other lightweights needed two fights for one win over Lamont Roach, what do you think these people would say?
Think they'd be this understanding? These are rhetorical questions. You already know the answers, too. I heard a rumor that they're looking at June for the rematch. This situation is eerily semblant of what happened to Deontay Wilder the first time he fought Tyson Fury. That fight ended in a draw, just like this one.
And in that fight, a lot of people felt Tyson Fury won, kinda like a lot of people feel Lamont Roach won.
You all know what happened to Deontay Wilder in their second meeting. Is that the same fate that awaits Gervonta Davis ahead of his second fight with Lamont Roach? History does have a way of repeating itself, doesn't it?
Anything happens to Gervonta Davis, the PBC is screwed. He's one of the few flagship fighters they have left. They can't put it all on David Benavidez, because he doesn't sell.
They don't have any bodies at that weight to keep him busy, not them by themselves.
Anything happens to Gervonta, it's a catastrophe.
What would seem to be the biggest part of the PBC's bottom line this year, anything happens to him, it's over.
You finished.
They may have had some kind of an arrangement with Jake Paul ahead of the Lamont Roach fight on the predication they thought it would be easy. They thought they would win. They now have to settle this before they can move into anything.
Though to me, the damage is done.